Good morning and welcome to my garden. Today I'd like to show you what's been going on with the papayas that I've cut, how they've grown, whether they've done well or not, and what you can expect if you decide to prune the height of your papayas. I've been growing papayas for 6 years now, and over those years I've done some experiments with my papayas. I've tried cutting them, I've tried putting worm tea on them, I've tried pruning all the side branches off them, and I've had a number of results, and I've had different plants behave in different ways. I invite you to join me on my journey of discovery as I garden my father's world. So this is contour 1, and these are my most established papayas. You see that one's got some lovely flowers and some developing fruit. And this one over here has quite a lovely crop coming on this trunk. Promise of lots of yummy fruit. And this is the third one on this contour. My papayas, first sign of mold. Welcome to winter. Okay, this papaya does not look happy. Stem a bit damaged. Still trying to produce fruit. Now these plants on contour 1 on the south have a lot of side branches coming up. Anything above waist height, I'm going to take off. Okay, they're all pruned off now. Lots of branches gone. They're all clean, all the side branches are gone. They're now a lot taller and they have a lot more airflow around them because nothing else is up as tall as them. This papaya had problems. You can see though that it's got some regrowth happening up the stem. Well, I'm going to cut that back to about knee high to encourage it to start sprouting from there. Okay, I've chopped the top off this papaya. Now I deliberately did it significantly higher than where I intend to chop it off, finally, in case I damaged anything. So in case it tore down the side, which it didn't, thankfully. So most trees have what they call deadwood or heartwood down the centre. And this is what holds it up straight and makes it strong. Papaya doesn't have any heartwood. In fact, it has an empty channel. I don't know how far down we can see, but I would guess that's quite a long way down that we can see, and it's all hollow. But look at this half. Okay, so I don't know how much you can see there. Maybe 15 centimetres inside this part, there is a completely closed section. So that's a lot like bamboo that has sections where they're joined and then sections where they're opened. I hypothesize that that is why my papayas were able to withstand the cyclonic winds we had in the last couple of months. As they are blown around, their trunks can flex. Wanting to chop this down, this is the lowest shoot, and that is the shoot that I was going to keep. So I'm actually going to chop it down, hoping to still be above the divider where the water will not be able to go down any deeper. I've taken off another 30 centimetres. I reckon the join might be just a little bit below this shoot. So we're going to go a little bit lower. Okay, I've chopped off the next section and I've got down to what looked like the closed section, and you can see it's still quite open. So I'm not going to chop any more off that. There's not much left on that papaya stem. That would be about knee high now. And I think that shoot will be damaged if I cut any lower. So I'm going to leave it at that. Do I need to cover this? Well, I always remember my mum covering papaya plants with a tin can to keep the rain out. It is April, our rain is reducing. I'm actually not going to cover it. I'm going to see what happens. The papayas have got a lot of sad looking leaves. I wonder if that's just winter or if some of them are ill. I know there's one there that's died and a second one that looks like it might be about to die. Yeah, the papayas aren't looking so good. So I wonder if that's because it's got dry again, so they're not all lush and green. We've got a lot of branches died off. I don't know whether the trees themselves are starting to die, but we'll discover that in time. My papayas are looking really sad. Some of them are growing back. Some of them don't look like they want to. For example, I think I'd consider chopping this one down. I can't reach any of the fruit except on this little one here. But the main problem is that all the leaves were frosted off back in June, and now the plants are struggling to thrive. So if I chop that one back, perhaps it'll grow back. I had a papaya here that died before we left. It rotted down in the centre, and so I've chopped it down. Now, they all say to put a can on top of papaya because they're hollow in the centre and they'll get full of water and they'll rot. Papaya has these rings through the middle of it to help it be stable and will prevent water going all the way down the centre of the trunk. Now, I got very lucky when I cut it, and so I was able to cut it so there's going to be very little water that'll be able to sit there and rot that papaya. And we've got some nice shoots here that are going to shoot up, and I'll have a papaya back here. Maybe in a year or so it'll be as tall as the others again. But that's not going to need a can over the centre of it to stop water pooling because it's almost level. I could cut it a bit more, but I'm a bit concerned about how thin that area there may be. I don't want to invite the risk of cutting it down too far. And of course, it went on my chop and drop row. This plant here, I chopped down and it quickly filled with water. The result was the side shoots have all died off and there is no way that that plant will live again. So it's dead. I have a papaya over here where I chopped it down so that the closed section was at the top. You can see here that the closed section is at the top and it was closed over, but it appears to have gone mouldy. Has the water gone down to lower levels? I actually don't know. I can't tell. Actually, that is hard, so maybe it hasn't. And it is sprouting here, so maybe that gives some hope that this papaya will grow back. Okay, so I've just taken down this papaya here. It was in the worst condition, while the others have some leaf growth after the frosts of this winter. This one had no leaf growth. You can see the one last leaf that's left on the plant was looking pretty sad. So I decided that it could come down. Now, how high should you chop off a papaya? Okay, so I know I've been experimenting with chopping them off and finding the place to put the cut so that the centre of the plant doesn't fill with water. This particular plant, its lowest shoots are here. So knowing that part of the trunk is often hollow, I chose to cut it a fair distance above that so that if this part was hollow, I could cut it down, I'm pleased to see I managed to cut it near a solid part. You can see there's a little pinprick in the centre, but I hope that that will harden up. That's the angle it is. I would cut the angle stronger, but I'm afraid of cutting through the thick part into a hollow part, and then all the water will go in and I'll have to cut it lower. It's also interesting to note the shape of the trunk. So if you look at the shape of the trunk here, you can see it's really smooth and then it gets really gnarly. Now, I'm not quite sure what caused that kind of growth. If we look at the rest of it here, that actually looks quite good here and it's quite consistent all the way up. But just that section there looked really gnarly. So I was hoping that section would have a lot of solid parts through it because I assumed it meant that that part of the tree had gone through a tough time and it had to strengthen itself, and it would do that inside with the solid core. So that's another reason why I chose to chop there, just below the clean part and just above the messy part. This papaya, I chopped the top off it so it could re-sprout here. There were no leaves at the top at all. You can see the top looks pretty dried out. There are some cracks that could let moisture in down the stem, but we'll see how that goes and see if that continues to live well enough to allow these side shoots here to produce fruit. This one I chopped back because it had no good leaf at the top. I cut it where it was solid, but you can see it has sunken in, and that's reasonably deep now. That would be 5 centimeters deep. So that will be capturing water. I've cut some of the high and dry side, and I've cut out the side so the water doesn't pool in here, comes in here. However, I notice again that it's actually very mucky in here and that it's hollow. It's got some very sad looking leaves. I'm going to have to hope that there's a solid part about here that's going to prevent the water from getting right down to the bottom and killing off the tree. These two here are very tall and there's no way in the world I can access those fruit. I'm going to cut them back to about 50 centimeters above the lowest shoot. I'm doing that because I don't want to run the risk of it being hollow and filling with water. So this is a shoot I'm going to encourage. Well, actually, this one has a really low shoot. I could chop it back as low as that. So what I might do is chop it back to just above here, hoping to save this shoot. But if I don't, I've got that one down there. Part of the reason I grow papaya, yeah, I love eating the fruit very much. But part of the reason I grow papaya in these gardens is that they can provide some summer shade for my vegetables and for the other fruit trees. So if I cut it back, it'll have more leaf growth down lower and it will provide more shade immediately around it, which is beneficial for the vegetables. Okay, you can see that I've taken it down. I also took off a branch that was coming out here. I don't want too much foliage here. So I'm hoping this lower shoot here is able to grow and take over. But until then, this growth on top can become strong and produce fruit that I can actually reach. You can see I've cut it off on an angle to encourage water to roll off. And I've cut it just above where the trunk is solid, so that water won't go down the trunk all the way. Now this one here, I will chop that one next. So now I've taken down the second papaya, just above the shoot up here at 1 metre high. And you can see I've come near a hollow. Now how far does that go? Bit hard to see, but I believe it goes all the way down to at least here on the side. And I just keep chopping. And every section I cut off is completely hollow. And interesting, there is water in the centre. Well, that's interesting because this papaya has not been cut and is full of water. So I'll keep cutting and aim to go above a join, which might be at about this height, but we're getting mighty close to losing the whole plant. So I keep cutting it down and I'm now cutting into the water level. Look at this. I think the entire trunk of this tree is hollow and it's full of water. So I'm not quite sure what to do about that. I think I'm just going to leave it where it is and see what happens. And maybe next time I prune down a papaya, maybe I'll aim a lot further higher than the branch I want to keep. I think I'm fortunate I left that one as high as I did, because I suspect the bottom of that one's all full of water too. You may remember I pruned the 3 papayas in this row. Let's have a look at how they're going. Now this first one here had these lovely big branches off to the side, up near the top. So I preserved them and I cut it here above them. Now you'll see that this hard encrusted top has let the water through. So far these branches are doing okay, but you've got the water in here and I don't know if it's going to become a problem. But this was a solid cover when I left it. Let's have a look at the next one. When I cut this one, I discovered that the centre from about 1.5 meters up was full of water and there were no solid sections. So when I cut it down to here, I stopped because there is this shoot on the side here and this shoot on the side here. And if I'd have kept cutting it, I was concerned that I'd lose those shoots. It was already full of water, so I chose to just let it be. And you can see it's full of water Around the outside, it appears to be solid and hard. I mean, that is very hard. In fact, that's a lot harder than that one was. That one's starting to feel squishy on the top, but this one feels very hard. So I think that's an interesting discovery. We'll see what happens over the coming weeks. On to the next one. When I cut this one, it was solid as well. And I cut it on an angle. The sides died off. And when I came back to check on it, it was full of water, so I pruned it off again. The shoots at the bottom are even stronger now. So we'll see what happens with that one. This one here had so much water in its trunk, I just kept cutting it down and down all the way. I didn't expect it would live, I expected it would rot. However, it is still living and it's still got some really nice side branches, but that's growing well even though the trunk is full of water. And I suspect that's creating a lovely habitat for frogs and maybe mosquitoes. Yeah, there's a lot of mosquito wrigglers in there. Maybe that's the biggest reason to put a cover over them. Okay, this one was also chopped down and it seems to have grown back with a lot of branches. Now, having a look at how close some of those are to the top, I suspect that that one will be easily broken because this part of the trunk here is very soft. And so that one growing right there is more likely to fall off. And the centre has died off quite a bit, but there are still branches that are growing on the edge. Okay, what's going on with this papaya? You can see down the centre there, there's water pooling there in the centre. The third papaya on this row also got chopped off because it died off. And you can see again, some of these branches are coming up really close to the top. They're likely to snap off when this top completely rots back. Chopping these papayas was necessary either because the top had died off or because they just weren't able to produce fruit that I could reach anymore. But it was an experiment and I can see what's going on with these. When you do chop a papaya, it does rot back. Now my mum has yellow papaya plants. She calls them pawpaw, as many people do in Australia. She puts a can over the trunk of the plant that's been chopped back. I actually don't have anything that's the right shape to fit over the top of mine. And when I inspected her plants, I found that the area under the can had died off, just like these had, but it hadn't extended beyond the size of the can. Now I'm wondering if the continuing weathering of the sun and the rain would help them rot back further than they would if they had a can over them to keep the water out. I'm very pleased to have a nice crop of papayas coming on this plant. You can see at the top, a lot of the branches are right near the top of the trunk. And the problem I see here is that all these branches at the top are very close to the part which is disintegrating and breaking. Now it feels very firm underneath the branches. It also has occurred to me that if those branches are growing strongly, perhaps they are actually preserving the trunk and keeping the trunk strong. So this papaya that was chopped down, I have shown you before that the top of the stem that was chopped is all fraying. It's turning like concertina cardboard. That's really weak and it's easy to move. And I've been concerned that these side branches will break off, particularly if we had some wind. I've made an interesting observation. Look at this. So you see these stems, they were on the outside of the papaya, but it seems to me that they've grown into the papaya and they have inside become very firm. That's solid. That's not soft anymore. And that has come in and become a hard part of the tree, and so has this one. Those three stems are really firmly attached to the trunk. And that is not what I expected because there was a lot of soft wood that they were growing. It's not even wood. There was a lot of soft trunk that they were growing in the side of. You'll notice that there's no rot in there, even though the rain can go in there and build up. So it's fascinating to see how firm this has grown and made these very strong trunks. Okay, this one here, see all these side branches coming off? They're very firm, but I have no evidence that they're growing strongly inside the trunk like the other one was. It's all rotting around the side. You can see there's water all the way down in the centre here. This one was hollow all the way down, and it was full with water all the way down when I first chopped it. Okay, how's this one going? Okay, what's going on here? I can see that has firmed up beautifully. That's really hard. What have we got in there? Oh, okay. So I think we've got rodents that are bringing my jalapeno chilies up here, and they're sitting in here and eating them. That's funny. This is hard, and it has sealed over, and there is no need for a can on top. I'm really impressed by that.